And good evening. Welcome to a special edition of Gator's Garage. This evening we'll be featuring myself, of course, the Gator, and Mrs. Gator, Gabby, as she explains to us the game of Star Fleet Battleforce. A little bit of backstory. Star Fleet Battleforce was the first game that I ever carried in the store. It actually predates Gator Games, to be honest with you. I've been a demo guy for this game for probably 15 years, or before I asked them and said, "Hey, can I maybe sell a dozen of these for you at shows when I go to show them?" And next thing you know, I've got a fully blown store. So this one has a special place in my heart. I also grew up playing Starfleet battles. Don't worry, this is not nearly that complicated. And when I figured out what Starfleet Battleforce was and saw it was in their catalog, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to have this. So, like I say, we sell it. And maybe you've not seen it before. It's probably a little different than most of the other games you've seen. It is a card game. Everything you need to play is in the box. Not necessarily any extra decks or anything to buy, although there's a lot of print and play components on the Amarillo Design Bureau website. I'll put their link in the description below. And without further ado, we're going to go ahead and turn this back to Gabby and let her kind of walk us through it. At certain points, I'll explain a little bit of what we now call lore, the background of the game, why we picked the ships we did, and who the different factions are that are in the Starfleet universe. So Starfleet Battles takes place in the Kirk universe, the original 1960s era Star Trek. And they've got a very narrow license to show certain layouts from there. They can show an Enterprise class ship. They can't necessarily show the Enterprise. So today's Enterprise looking ship is actually the Constellation, which interestingly enough, the Enterprise was a Constellation class ship. So there you go. And we'll walk through the other ships as well. Gabby, you want me to finish talking about the ships before you start explaining rules? Go ahead.
Okay. So I want to start with why I like to play this game. I am not as much of a nerd as the other guys are.
I represent that remark.
But nonetheless, I find this game very satisfying as it scratches a number of itches. So the very most basic reason why I like to play this game is because starships are cool. If you don't like starships, this isn't the video for you. Skip to the next one.
That's right. Go back to bolt action.
The second reason why I like to play this game is because every rule in this rule book has a basic and an advanced option. And most of them also have going too far.
We're such experienced videographers here.
Okay. You have your basic option, you have your advanced option, and you have your optional option. You see,
hey, Gabby, can you come about halfway up off the table so the folks can see a little better? Thank you.
So you can see there's a symbol here and here telling what is optional and what is advanced. Now, if you have an adult helping you and you can count to 7, you can play the basic rules. I like to say that you should that in order to play this game properly, you have to be able to count to 15.
Why 15?
Because there's usually not more than about 8 or 12 hit boxes on a specific ship.
Got it. We'll talk about those in a bit. Okay.
So and you also and there's some really basic multiplication and subtraction.
Okay.
So if you're playing a small ship with 6 slots and you double something, then you need to be able to count to 12 for that ship.
So maybe something like this Orion Light Raider, which has 4 slots. 1, 2, 3, 4. So
to play that ship, you need to be able to count to 8.
Okay. Very good.
Okay. So to start the game, the first thing you need to do is you need to agree on exactly which rule set you are going to use.
The game is really a toolbox. You can make it as complicated or as simple as you like.
So, for the most part, we are going to play the very most base.
Go ahead.
The very most basic version of the game, except we are going to use this advanced rule that allows you to repair each ship one hit point, one hit box each round.
Okay, very good. So, how do we start the game?
Now that we've gotten the rules, we need to talk about what kind of ships we have and what kind of cards we have.
Excellent. So, first, let's talk about the ships. And it wouldn't be a Starfleet Battles game if we didn't have some kind of Klingon cruiser. This is actually a D5, which is a mark beside the D7. It's a little bit lighter than the D7, but not much. It's equipped with phasers and disruptors and drones, and you'll see how all those work directly. Just in honor of this being the old Trek universe, we could not leave out a Romulan War Eagle, because why not? If you have seen, if you followed any of the old lore, and if you've seen the Day of the Eagle, then this is or Day of the Dove. I'm sorry, this is the cruiser from that particular episode, the old Romulan War Eagle. Quite nasty in its time. Running alongside these two is a cruiser converted into a fighter carrier, and Miss Gabby will be explaining how those work. So that's one of the distinctives of the Starfleet universe, is that fighter shuttle carriers are an integral part of the universe. Some people kind of pinch their nose at that. For myself, that was actually what got me interested in the game. So 2 Klingon ships and a Romulan ship here. You can play the game by just randomly distributing ships up to a point level. I like to play according to the lore, and within the lore, the Klingons and the Romulans fight the Gorn, the Federation, and the Kazini. Although at times both the Kazini and Gorn have fought the Federation, so I guess you could kind of mix it up. So let's look at the Gorn cruiser here. This is the Reptelicon. If you are a Starfleet Battles player, you'll know this ship from Refiner's Fire. It's a classic Gorn heavy or command cruiser. Got a mix of plasma and phaser weapons. Of course, no Starfleet or Star Trek themed game would be complete without a Federation heavy cruiser. And here we have the heavy cruiser Constellation, which lends its name to the entire class, which includes, of course, the USS Enterprise. Equipped with photons, torpedoes, and yes, a drone or a missile launcher, but that's part of the game lore. So there we go. And then finally, the ship that honestly got me into the Starfleet universe, the Kazini attack shuttle carrier. So it carries fighters, drones, disruptors, and phasers. Oh yeah, and it's crewed by fighting cats. And if the name Kazinti sounds familiar to you, yes, these are essentially based on the same Kazinti that come from the Larry Niven's known universe, and he kind of gave Stephen Cole the nod to borrow them for Starfleet battles. So that's the lore, and here's our 2 alliances. Go ahead, Gabby.
Okay, so absolutely the most basic thing you have to know about this game in order to be able to play it is that there are 2 kinds of cards. You have ship cards and you have action cards.
Action stations, action stations. Set condition 1 throughout the deck.
Now, you can see here, I'm going to be fancy, folks. I'm going to show you the SITS factions in a nice, neat way because it makes me happy.
So we have the Gorn. There's actually 7, because you have the Orions and the Tholians. And yes, they can do web.
According to the rules, the Orions and the Tholians are mortal enemies. However, they are both mercenaries and can be hired by the same side.
Absolutely. You got the Federation, the Romulans, the Gazini, and the Klingons.
So the thing you have to see about each and every one of these ships is that they have these lovely color-coded weapons mounts on them. So you can see these rectangles here each have a color and a shape and a label telling you exactly what they are. These are your guns. These are your bullets. If you look,
Hey, look at that. What do you got there? Phaser 3?
this is the color and the shape of
A phaser.
Now you see the things, some of these have multiple options.
Here, let me help you, Gabby. Let me grab a ship that actually has a Phaser 3. The D5 has one.
I did want a phaser one, actually.
Okay. This also has a Phaser 1, man. So you can do the same thing with both cards.
So you can see that, oh, that is perfect. I wanted multiples. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You see, this is the same shape here. This simpler shape can go through this more complicated shape, but the other way around is not true. This phaser 2, which is the same type of weapon, cannot go through the phaser 3 slot. It will not fit through that hole. And that is how you remember whether you can or cannot fire a specific weapon through a specific weapon
But
slot.
now hold the Phaser 2 card for a minute, please.
Yes, sir.
But now the Phaser 2 card, come down or come up. There we go. The Phaser 2 card will fit through the slots on the Phaser 1. And so that reminds us that a Phaser 1 can fire as a 1, a 2, or a 3. And interestingly enough, hold that 2 card one more time.
Yes, sir.
The Phaser 2 has options it has the slot for the Phaser 3, so you can fire the Phaser 2 as a Phaser 3 as well.
All right.
Okay.
So for now, we are going to ignore these right here. What you want to pay attention to right now while we are starting is, does this bullet match this gun? And how much damage does it do?
Okay. It's my Klingon ship. Can I reset the squadrons now?
Yes, please.
Okay.
All right, Michael,
Yes, ma'am.
can you talk about lore while I shuffle the deck?
I have, but I can talk about some more lore. So the big event. Okay, go ahead.
Because what I've done is I've separated out the bullets
Okay.
from the other special cards.
Okay.
So here are some special cards. Like this one, the PF Flotilla.
No, that's actually that's the planet-based fighters. The PF flotilla is in your other hand.
Yes. These can be fired, please note the air quotes, at the same time as each other, but they cannot be shot at the same time as one of these. It'll be relevant later.
So, so you can use the fighter card or the PF card in place of a weapons card. That's important to remember.
Now, the reason why I have everything sorted out is because there are 4 cards that the game strongly recommends removing from the deck before you begin your first game.
Oh, but can we talk about them just a little bit?
Yes.
Okay. So
this one in specific is a pain to explain to first-time players.
So let me start with the Organian treaty because it's kind of fun. So in the original series, the Klingons and Federation end up fighting around the planet Organia or Organa, depending on how you pronounce it. And the Organians disable everybody's weapons and tells everybody go home and play nice. What the deck does is the same thing. You have to reshuffle all cards except any that you have in reserve, which is a rule we're not using, and deal new hands. So everybody's hand gets reshuffled. Kind of fun. I like it. Okay. This Klingon mutiny. So as you may or may not know, the Klingon ships, the crews on the Klingon ships are often subject races, and Klingon society is very unstable and violent. There's actually a couple of security stations on each ship. And if those are damaged, well, then you might have a Klingon mutiny. In the game, what happens is you get either damage to the ship or the ship gets captured by your opponent, which is always lovely.
So yes, you can theoretically steal your opponent's Klingon cards.
Yes. And then these are a couple of reinforcement cards that we're not going to use based on the game's recommendation. And that helps speed up play. Each player can have anywhere from 3 to 12 ships. The more ships you have, the longer the game goes. And that brings me to another point, Gabby. How do you win the game?
The game is won the first time one side, any side, runs out of ships.
Okay.
That is how the game ends.
Okay.
After someone runs out of ships, you calculate points.
Okay.
Your points are this number right here on the ship. It's the only number, so it's really easy to remember.
Yes.
It's also easy. It also helps that it's the only number, so you don't try and think that's a weapons mount that you can knock off as a hit.
I'm going to fire my number 8 at you. Go ahead.
Now, however many ships you have stolen from the opponent and put into your graveyard, what's the fancy nautical term for it? You're not salvage. At the end of the game, you count up that number and you add it to these numbers, and that is your score.
So you would add the number of enemy ships you've destroyed or captured, plus the number of ships you have remaining in your squadron.
The game rules very specifically take paragraphs in more than one place to explain that, hey, you might want to be the person to take the last hit on an enemy ship because of the points, because you can get very popular softening up someone's ship, but not necessarily win.
So you kind of just cracked the window on something. We still want to talk about the general lore too, but we'll come back to that. The game can be played with 2 to 6 players. And so that's an important thing. So you can play, if it's just like Gabby and I play, sometimes just the 2 of us, and we'll play. This is probably the smallest we'll play is 3 ships. Anything smaller, it doesn't seem to really carry on very well. But when you get more than about 3 players, you've got to do some creative card recycling. So 5 cards looks good, Gabby. So that's one thing about the game. The other is how you choose to play. You can randomly distribute the cards, but if you're someone who's been in the universe like I have, the big event of the Starfleet universe is the surprise, surprise General War. And during that particular fight, the Gorn, the Federation, and the Gazinis were active belligerents against the Klingons, the Romulans, and another faction that we don't have out called the Lyrans. And so we've divided these up according to the Grand Alliances. This also gives the players, you see a bunch of different colored boxes. That means that the players have a variety of weapons types available to them. I got some good cards here.
Okay, so this is one of those games that, because it is descended from the old school war games, it has a very specific order of play, and you can see that on how it's got everything numbered on your active player card, and it wants you to pass this around to whoever is the active player, and so that everybody at the table can tell who is the active player, and so the active player can reference this at their convenience.
There you go. And there's 2 sides to it. There's this side, and there's also how to have combat. So that comes in handy. Actually, I think that opens up, doesn't it? No.
It does not. You're thinking of this.
Okay. So how to have combat, which is, of course, important, but also what the active player gets to do. Do you want to be the first active player, Gabby, or do you want me to be the first active player?
It's usually easier when I'm explaining things for me to go first.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so to start with, I have my hand out so that everybody can see what I have for the sake of teaching.
Yep.
Obviously, that is not standard play. So I'm going to look through my hand. The first thing I'm going to say is, do I have any bullets that... No, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the order of play and make sure I'm not doing something stupid. All right, so step 1 is draw. I have 5 cards because the game just started. Step 2 is repair. None of my ships are damaged. Step 3 is formation. We probably won't end up using the formation rules in this stage, but formation goes before combat.
Right.
step 4 is combat, and then at the end of your turn is the discard phase, where you can discard 1 card.
You can discard several cards in the combat phase if you want to.
But that's instead of combat, and technically that's an advanced rule, so we won't be playing that right now.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay.
Just for the sake of not confusing people.
They'll be confused enough as it is.
They always are. I get too close to people, they get confused. Okay, so this is a photon.
Right.
This ship has photons. This is a phaser. All 3 of my ships have phasers, so I can fire this and this from this ship.
So that's a key point, is that you can only attack with 1 ship at a time, but you can attack with 1 card on each weapons mount.
Yes.
One card per weapons mount. So if you had 3 photon cards, you could still only play 2 of them.
Yes.
Okay.
So you have to actively put your bullets through the gun that
Right.
is on the ship.
Yep.
You can't just swap it out for a different gun or decide to have a thing come out the back of the ship. And no, we're not quite playing that much imaginary. So I'm going to choose this ship because it's convenient for me.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and pull him up just a little bit so it's obvious what ship we're using. Okay.
Now, before I start, I'm going to go ahead and sort my cards.
Okay.
I cannot use this and these at the same time, so I'm not going to use this right now. This is a defensive card and will be useful if he attacks me. So I don't have to worry about that right now. This is a repair card, which cannot be used in combat. So I don't have to worry about that right now. So I'm just going to worry about these 2.
Okay.
Now, I am going to pick your Romulan is not cloaked.
Nope, because we're not using the cloak rules. So
We are. What do you mean we're not using the cloak rules? Cloak or basic?
Oh, okay.
Okay. You just haven't had a chance to, you haven't had a formation stage, so you haven't had a chance to get to that.
Caught me napping. Okay.
So I'm going to throw both of these bullets through this ship at this ship.
Okay. Count your number of damage points, please.
So this is 5 and 7.
Okay. So I need I don't have any defenses. I have a phaser 1 and phaser 2, which can't be used to turn phasers. Legendary Gunner, which can magnify one of my weapon systems. PF Flotilla, which is nasty. And then damage control. So I get 7 points of damage on my ship. Photon's not stopped by anything. It's a direct fire weapon.
Cool.
So give me 7 damage tokens, please.
I'm just going to go over real quick. This is what he's talking about on whether a thing cannot be damaged or not. Five, 6, 7. Now, before he starts allocating his damage, I am going to explain these slots. Now, these slots on the back of the ship are things that are not necessary for combat. These are your crew quarters, your mess halls, and your holodecks. So he is undoubtedly going to fill those in first. And I'm just going to go ahead and pop these in for him. Now, nice and tidy so everyone can see what's going on. Now, he still has 2 more points of damage that he has to allocate, and he can only put them on the gun mounts. So the tricky bit here is that once a gun mount has been blocked, it cannot be fired until it is repaired.
Correct.
I would generally advise starting with your least complicated, lowest firing gun, because you're going to be able to fire a plasma F from a plasma R, but not the other way around.
So actually what I would do is, I know what I have in my hand. I have 2 phaser cards, so I'm not going to need either one of those plasma torpedoes for this round. So I'm going to go ahead and mark the plasma F and the plasma R.
All right. And both ships retreat. these get discarded because that's the end of the combat phase. And then I get to look at my hand and say, is there anything in my hand that I want to discard? I'm going to say no. This is actually a very auspicious hand for me, and I'm going to keep it.
Okay. All right. So now it's back to my turn. I'm going to walk through the turn here. Draw. I didn't spend any cards, so I don't need to draw. I do need, however, need to repair. Can repair 1 point on each ship that's damaged. So we're going to do that.
And I always repeat this because people always need to hear it. He's pulling it from the most complicated arc first because it's the one he's most likely to be able to use.
So the plasma R, and this is just something you have to memorize. The plasma R can fire any type of plasma torpedo. In fact, the plasma torpedoes have a similar lineup to the phasers. Also, I have a damage control card.
Oh, if this says what I think it is, you can use your engineering repair or your damage control, not both.
Oh, the engineer, I can use engineer or damage control, but I can repair, I can do continuous damage control too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes we say that differently, but right.
There we go. And that's going to allow me to pull 2 points off. So now my ship is fully combat capable, which is pretty useful. Now what I'm going to do is I could cloak if I want to now, but now you've well, you know what? Watch this. I'm going to go ahead and cloak my ship. So hand me the cloak marker. So this is actually a marker we bought separately, just so we can keep them straight from the damage markers.
People keep trying to say when they can't quite see the cards, hey, I want to shoot that damage ship, and there's no damage ships on your side of this table.
Right. Okay, so I have cloaked my cruiser, so he's going to be less susceptible to damage from Gabby's ships. And now what I'm going to do,
however,
I take roughly half damage, and I can't fire because I'm cloaked.
You can't make sudden movements when you're cloaked and fire, or else you lose cloak.
Right. So what I am going to do is I'm going to play the phaser 1 from the retaliator.
Indicate ship.
Okay.
Indicate who you're attacking.
And then I'm going to attack. Which one of your ships is more vulnerable? Probably the Fed heavy cruiser. Besides that, what Klingon captain in his right mind is not going to want to go after a Federation heavy cruiser? And I have Karg the Magnificent as my legendary gunner. And if you read the card, I'll pull it up here so you guys can read it with me. Legendary gunner. He doubles 1 weapons card. Can't be combined with anything else, but it's going to double the effects of that phaser. So now that phaser is going to have 6 points going at Gabby's cruiser, which could do a lot of damage. And I could get all kinds of crazy, maybe. No, I can only fire the 1 phaser 1. I've got a phaser 2 card, but I can only put 1 card through the phaser 1 mount. So I fired my phaser run and doubled. So Gabby, you got 6 points coming at you.
I'm going to rearrange things so that things will fit better.
Okay.
Okay, so what I am going to do is, I cannot play this card. It says clearly right here on the bottom, cannot be played in defense. This is a repair card.
You're going to need it.
I'm going to want it. However, this card is erratic maneuvers, reduces an attack by 4. So what's going to happen is this ship comes down, this goes under it, and that comes from 6 to 2.
Yes.
So I now have 2 points of damage on this ship, and this ship is in erratic maneuvers until the end of my next turn.
And that's why you have it turned sideways.
That is why I have it tapped.
Okay.
And I put this right here so that I can keep track of what's going on. If you notice right here in the discard phase, it says remove all wild weasels and erratic maneuver cards. So that tells you when that comes off.
Okay, that's excellent. All right, so I return the favor to you. Didn't let you get by fully unscathed before you banged the crap out of that poor war eagle. We'll see if we can keep him alive. Okay, I have 2 cards left. I'm going to hang on to the PF card in case I don't have any weapons cards available. And I'm going to hang on to the phaser 2 because I may need that to defend one of my ships. And again, Just a reminder, this is a Phaser 2 card, and it can be fired out of either one of my Phaser 1s, any of my Phaser 1s on any of my ships. So that's handy. Okay?
Right. It is now my turn.
Yes, ma'am.
The first thing I do, I've got 2 cards.
Yep.
3, 4, 5.
So you always draw back up to 5 cards at the beginning of your turn.
Oh, hello. Not the best hand in the world,
No.
but it'll be fine. Now, the first thing I'm going to do, now that I have my cards, is repair the ship. Real easy decision on what to pull off. I am not going to bother using either of my damage control cards because it's only got 1 point of damage on it. I'm not that worried yet. All right, so that leads me down into my formation. I don't have anybody with the ability to cloak. I don't have any formation cards in my hand, so that takes me down to combat. We are not using the optional rule, so combat or no combat is my option. I don't have any good attack options right now. So that leaves me with 2 things. I can either do this, which is not a good attack option for reasons, or I can go ahead and demonstrate what these fighters can do. Michael, I am going to go ahead and attack your ship with the fighter base.
Okay, so let's explain what fighters are on the ships. So there is a symbol on the ship called FDR, and each one of those allows you to roll a single D6. So in a full strength carrier can roll 2 instead of attacking with weapons. So you can either fire direct fire weapons or launch the fighters. And I guess the idea there is if your ship's launching fighters, you're not getting into weapons range. And if you're in weapons range, well, you're going to keep the fighters on board.
I always considered that a discipline thing, that you're not going to send your actual, in this guy's case, actual human beings out into a live fire zone.
Oh, we do it all the time.
Yeah, so let's slide this forward.
Okay.
So you can do one or the other, but not both, because you don't shoot your people barreling forward in front of bullets.
Makes sense. Go ahead.
All right, now, before I do this, there is a really special rule that I don't think he's going to be able to pull off, and I'm not worried about, thankfully. You can fire at the fighters, and if they take sufficient damage, if they take 6 points of damage per bay, the fighter base can be damaged by being shot out of the air.
The most I can do is 3, so I can't actually damage your fighter bay. 7 points, that hurts.
So, if he fires that phaser at this fighter, he can just take these 2 points off.
I can actually take 3 points total. No, I take 1 die, don't I? No, I take 3 points. Not the die, I take 3 points. So that's going to leave me 4 points of damage. Which is still nothing to sneeze at, man.
If he had a defensive card, he would play it after playing a attack card, because that's how the game wants you to do the math.
Right. So you'll notice there, a fighter attack is subject to interception by phasers. And this is a good time to talk about this. We didn't initially worry about the little letters at the bottom, but a phaser has an F, and that means it can be fired at fighters. And it can also have a D and a P, meaning it can be fired at drones and plasma torpedoes, and a PF, meaning it can be fired at that bad boy. So there you go.
Just as a recap, the little tiny letters are what you can fire this against when firing defensively.
Yes.
If you want to know more about that, that is what this reference sheet is for.
All right.
So yes, there's a reference sheet, a brief reference sheet for, what's the word you like to use? Quick reference.
Quick reference. Yep. And they also go through the advanced sequence of play there too.
So if you're playing for the first time and you have someone else who's ever played it before and you want to know what to do, just read this part and ignore the rule book until you are the person. Just ignore the rule book until you are the person who is trying to teach this game to other people. Now, it is the
I don't know about ignoring the rule book, but yeah, that'll certainly help you. Go ahead. End of my turn. End of your turn.
Yes, it's now the end of my turn. So this comes off. Whee! This ship can theoretically attack again next turn.
Okay.
I am going to choose to discard this one weapons doubling card in the hopes that next round I will actually get a weapons card.
Okay. So I'm going to draw. I have one card left, and I can draw back up to 5. So I'm going to draw 4 cards. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I got a pretty good hand here. Got some phasers, got a drone, all the fun stuff. All right.
What do you say for the sake of demonstration we play until the first ship gets destroyed?
That sounds like a good idea because we're already at about 35 minutes. All right, so I could actually make that happen probably right now, but I think I will wait. What I am going to do is I'm going to do continuous damage. So I drew, and now it's repair. I'm going to repair a phaser 3 on my D7V carrier. I'm going to repair just a free hit box. And if we didn't explain, the little round boxes represent free hits. You can take all the hits you want there, and they don't affect the operation of your ship.
The combat operation of your ship.
Right. Although your crew might get upset if their bowling alley's wiped out. Just saying.
They might also get really mad if that's the engine.
No, that's true. It'll slow you down a little bit. Okay. So the next thing we're going to do is launch some kind of attack because I can't let these humans just bang away at me. So I've got a drone card here. So drones are basically missiles. Why they call them drones in this game, I don't know, but they've always called them drones, and that's got a DRN. So
it's because they're remote controllable.
Not really. They're seeking weapons. Once they're launched, they just guide in. You can't do much else with them. They're really more like missiles. They're really more like missiles than actual what the drones we use. So I am going to go ahead and for the D5, D5 is going to come on out, and we're going to go after that Federation heavy cruiser again. And we're going to hit him with a drone, and we're going to hit him with a phaser 1.
And we're going to try and do it with the...
And we're going to hit him with a phaser 3. So that's 7, 8, 9 points of damage coming at you, Gabby.
Drone 1, 3.
Yep.
Cool. So...
Utilized about every box on my card except the disruptors.
Guess what?
You're going to EM
I have
again?
a defensive card.
Okay. So she's going to do erratic maneuvers again.
Don't you get after me. Sometimes discretion is the better part of valor because I'm going to live to fight another day. Thank you very much.
So that's 7, 9 points minus 4. You still take 5. So
wait. It's rounded. The rounding is in favor of the defender.
There's no rounding needed, baby. 4 takes away the drone, and then you got 5 points of damage.
I'm sorry, I was wild weaseling that because a wild weasel is half.
Yes.
5 points of damage, yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Just a personal favorite recap of mine. This is not a damage block. You cannot fill it in.
Good point. Good reminder.
I am going to choose to fill in the photon weapons mounts.
Both of them?
Both of them because phasers are a much more common card in the deck than photons are.
I'm going to laugh my tail off if you pull 2 photon cards. But you do have continuous damage control, so you still can repair one if you need it. And you'll draw before repair, so that helps a lot. So I'm a pretty lucky fella, as y'all can see. My wife likes to play games with me, and give her half a chance, and she'll flat beat me. So there we go.
3 cards.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to draw 2. And what he doesn't know is that I have the ability to, I'm going to use that continuous damage. I'm going to take off 4
For the damage control card, right?
with a damage control card.
Okay, show the folks the damage control. There we go. Damage control forward. 4. One of the better DC cards in the deck. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, there's only like 1 legendary engineer in there, so don't count on getting that one.
Yeah.
All right, so that ship couldn't attack you this turn anyway, so
Right.
there you go. So, oh, that's actually tempting. That's 6 points of damage, but I'm going to go ahead and play this card against, I'll go against your Romulan.
Okay.
So we can demonstrate how the cloaking works.
Yeah, roger that.
Now, this card, you'll notice this card has sit blocks on the top, and it says scores damage equal to the die roll plus remaining strength. So, this card against the Romulan.
Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and roll my sits.
Okay, so what I would, since the Romulan is cloaked, I can't, and so if I weren't cloaked, I could use the Phaser 1 to shoot this Phaser 2 card and knock a couple points of damage off. But since I'm cloaked, I can't shoot. So we count up how much damage you did to me. It's 6 blocks plus the roll of a die, 10 points. However, it's halved because I'm cloaked. And that's going to give 5 points of damage. Now, this is a very important, another very important concept of the game.
Hopefully that was an even number, because now I don't have to remember whether it's whether cloak rounds up or web rounds up.
So go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you might think my ship is dead, but it's not. In the rules, you have to take all the hits on your ship plus 1. And so he's crippled, not good for much, but he needs 1 more point before he goes down. So I'm hanging in.
You have to put 1 on the ship as well.
That's correct. Okay. And so now it is my turn. And do you want to, I'm sorry, before it's my turn.
Take a moment to decide whether I want to discard a card. I do not. You are good.
Thank you. So now we're going to my turn, and I'm going to draw. I have 2 cards left. I'm going to draw 3. 1, 2, 3.
Can I say something obvious?
Yes.
So for novice game players, one of the things that's going to happen is that people will absolutely not mean to. They're not trying to be rude, but they're going to actually walk over your turn a little bit. And you've kind of got to defend your space. You've kind of got to you are here at this table because we have chosen to play with you. And one of the easiest ways to defend your space is simply just narrating what you're doing out loud so that people don't walk over you by accident.
Oh, that's a good point. I hear you. So for example, you'd say, okay, I'm drawing my cards. Now I'm doing repair. Now I'm doing a formation change. All right, now I'm going to do combat. Here's what I'm attacking you with. What are you defending with? All right, now I'm going to go ahead and discard.
So like you just saw me do, I narrated, let me decide if I'm going to discard something or not, so that he's not just watching me stare into space, trying to figure out whether or not I'm done with my turn or not. And then I say, okay, I am done. He knows.
Yeah, communication is important. And that's really one of the cool things about tabletop gaming as a hobby, is it really promotes communication between people, and often communication over something that's kind of third party and comfortable. So I drew my cards. Now I have formation change. I can play reinforcement cards. Don't have anything there.
He could also pull someone out of cloak now if he wanted to, but he doesn't.
Right.
I usually say, especially with beginning players, that anytime you attack someone with a ship, it's automatically going to come out of cloak, and I don't make them pay for pulling that ship out of cloak.
Okay, so that's an optional rule that you use.
That's how I like to educate it. That's not the right pronunciation, especially with new players.
Okay, so then we kind of sped up a little bit. I draw. Now I need to do repair. So I'm going to repair the disruptor on my D7V. and I'm going to repair the phaser 1 on my Romulan cruiser, make him just a little bit harder to take down. Don't have any fun damage control cards, so now we're going to go to combat. And you have the disruptor I wish I had. Now, had you held that overload card, you could have used it in conjunction with that disruptor, and that would have been handy.
Yes, but I also wouldn't have the disruptor.
Possibly. Okay. So, I think what I'm going to do is come on out with my, oh, there we go. One good turn deserves another. My Klingon carrier is going to come out and launch fighters at Gabby's banged up cruiser.
Now, I cannot fire weapons in defense of myself with this ship in erratic maneuvers.
Right. But you do now. The other thing I could do is go after your carrier, and that might be more worthwhile. You get that Romulan cruiser hanging by a thread. Let me go after, I'm going to go after that Fed cruiser again. I'm feeling lucky. Maybe I'll roll boxcars. Oh, I did it. Look.
You rolled
I never roll boxcars, y'all. I have a shirt that says Bad Dice Baker for a reason.
And he didn't buy it for himself.
Okay, so out of the 12 points, I'm going to go ahead and put 12 markers out here and we'll walk through the process. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So automatically I discard 4 points for the erratic maneuvers. And that leaves me 8 points to score damage with. I think I'm going to get your cruiser, sweetie. There's your 8 points. You want to put them on?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Okay.
I do not feel it necessary. You may have the ship.
And since we were playing until the first ship was destroyed, which is probably a good victory condition when you have a squadron level game like this, or maybe the first 2 ships, we're calling this game end. If we total the points, I have 18 plus 16 is 34. And then Gabby has 18 left. So it's definitely a coalition or a Klingon Romulan victory. And we'll all live to fight another day. Some other things about this game, it is a great game to play with non-wargamers who maybe you want to get into the wargaming hobby. If you're not a wargamer, you might well like this game because it doesn't have, it's not heavy lifting like a lot of other war games are. It's really got a lot in common with, many of the card games that we've all come to love and enjoy. Also, and Gabby and I are kicking this around to be watching our blog for it. We've been kicking around doing a campaign with this because, as you can see, it plays pretty quickly, and it would be easy to set up a series of systems to fight over and declare a winner when you capture a given number of systems. So just a couple of ideas. We hope you've enjoyed your time with Mike and Gabby, kind of something different from the Mike and Randy show. Mr. Randy's laid out sick tonight, so keep him in your happy thoughts. And man, thank you so much for watching the channel. Got to do the commercial, of course. If you like it, press the like button, press the share button. If you haven't seen it before, subscribe so you can get the latest updates from our channel. We cover all things gaming that the Gator is interested in. Also, if you look in the links below, we have a Ko-Fi and a Patreon link where you can buy us a cup of coffee because Lord knows doing this stuff is thirsty business. And best way to support the channel is go buy some merch from Gator Games and Books. We have this game on sale at our website for $22.95, and I think it's well worth the price. So again, thank you for your time, and y'all have a good evening.